So many of you take our annual tracker survey, and in 2018, it revealed that 85% of non-companies, the leading disability companies, reported having a disability-specific ERG. And of that, 73% of these companies involved their disability ERG in identifying and addressing client accessibility needs. We are privileged this evening to have 4 representatives from different companies who will share how they're aligning their ERGs with their company's business agenda. And more important, we'll be very careful, we've got a spill up here. We have some napkins, please. But more important is the results that they're getting. And you heard from Shane that it is possible. And was really pleased about what Shane was able to share, particularly in terms of results. So joining me on stage are Cassie Liverance. She's Vice President Supply Chain for the Consumer Products Division, Operations North America, L'Oreal USA, where she leads a team of 500. So Kathy, if you would. In her 16 years, she's had a number of leadership roles in operations, and she's a proud member of the USA's Disability Think Tank, or what we call ERG. So proud to have her with us. Joining her will be Stephanie Magner-Tripp, and she's head of employee advocacy and employee brand at New York Life, where she co-leads the Enable ERG. Her role is focused on developing strategic programs that focus on changing culture, improving the employee experience, and boosting engagement. She began her career at Capital One, where she rose through the ranks into leadership positions, example, as Vice President of Communications and Public Relations. Laura Bailey, Capital One, is Senior Vice President of Community Finance and Community Affairs. She leads Capital One's loans, investments, philanthropy, and volunteer service for communities. And she also serves in a number of leadership capacities, such as a trustee on the board of Enterprise Partners, a national nonprofit working to improve communities and people's lives through affordable housing and community services. She's also on the board of Capital One Foundation, among many other board leadership roles that she serves. By the way, you have all these bios in the program in front of you. And last but not least, we have John Sasso, who is part of Ernst & Young's Technology Information Security Organization and currently leads the Learning and the Knowledge team. He has been a leader, champion, and advocate for years for the Northeast Accessibilities Resource Network at EY, and with external organizations as the New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, the Ed Lucas Foundation, among many, many others. It is my pleasure to welcome them and have this conversation with them. So I'm going to start with Cassie, and I want for you to share with us one of the many things that as an organization you are doing in regards to aligning your ERG to support the business agenda. Tell us that story.
So what we're doing at L'Oreal USA is we've started an organization or a campaign called Breaking the Silence. And the Breaking the Silence campaign is really geared towards 2 things. One is to educate or re-educate people on what a disability is. I have a personal story where I didn't think my disability was a disability. I have a significant single-sided deafness, and I didn't consider that as a disability. And the Breaking the Silence campaign is what reminded me that 1, I'm special, and 2, there's an opportunity to have accommodations in the workforce. And so the Breaking the Silence campaign also gave me the confidence as an employee to invite myself to self-disclose that I had a disability in L'Oreal. And what the Breaking the Silence campaign also allowed us to do was create an opportunity to share stories. So myself and many of the other members, as members of the Disability Think Tank, we call ourselves the DiversABILITY Think Tank. We share our stories through blogs, online, and personal stories. and has been the biggest opportunity and improvement in how employees are now disclosing within L'Oreal.
So we could go 50 million different directions, but we don't have the time to dive into as much as we possibly could. So let me ask you this question. Doing such a program on such magnitude required getting other stakeholders to buy in. And typically, in your case, these are non-traditional stakeholders beyond HR that I'd love for you to talk about. Share with the audience how you get other stakeholders to buy in on ensuring the ERGs were part of this process and this initiative overall.
It's perfect. So you heard from Frédéric Rozé earlier that L'Oreal has a global commitment to sharing beauty with all. And part of that global commitment is putting a stake in the ground on the commitment of being an inclusive workforce in the communities that we work in, as well as suppliers that we work with. And so part of that was finding indirect employment opportunities within our facilities in L'Oreal. And we are working now with external partners, two of them I'll mention, Employment Horizons and PCDI. PCDI is a local organization that focuses on finding opportunities for employees with adults with autism. And we now have indirect employment in my facilities for employees with disabilities, and specifically with autism in this example. And to answer the question directly, who we had to gain as a stakeholder that are outside of the normal HR, we had to train and educate the local teams on recognizing people with disabilities and how to treat them in our organization. Also, our purchasing and sourcing strategy to give it a part of our sharing beauty with all commitment. We extend that to our suppliers. And so using purchasing as a stakeholder within the ERG or within our think tank and the local leadership in the facility.
Yeah, it's usually very challenging to get the leaders, the managers of the employee resource group members to be supportive and to be engaged in ensuring that the ERG members can indeed do what it is that they desire to do, because they often think that this is, it's taking time away from their day jobs. And what I'm hearing in what you just said is that because it's an enterprise effort and it's coming from the top, this is really critically important to the business. It was probably not so difficult, I'm assuming, to get the buy-in and the engagement and the support of the leaders of the ERG members. Am I right?
It wasn't difficult because it's the right thing to do. And now we have results to erase any stigma or stereotype against people with disabilities, which is in our current organization, the people with our external partner, they are performing at above 100% of the optimized goal that we gave them. So they are breaking down any stigma that maybe, if anyone had, is gone.
Yeah, talk about the results. I was really impressed with some of the numbers that you shared.
So in total, with the Breaking Silence campaign, you heard Mr. Rozé talk about our goal to be at 2% of employees representing disabilities. Through the Breaking the Silence campaign, we started in 2014 at 0.4%. We are now at 2.5%. And the biggest growth came from Breaking the Silence campaign and our leadership series that we do with DiversABILITY.
Great. I'm going to come back to you later, but I want to get some more stories in. Laura.
Yes.
Tell us what's happening at your organization. There are a whole host of things I know. Tell us what's happening here. One of the things that's happening there.
Yes. So background on Capital One, we have 47,000 employees. Our capabilities, ERG has about 3.5% of the workforce in our employee resource group. I keep stumbling over this because we call them ERGs. But in any event, it's the same principle. And we estimate that that's about half of the actual associates inside of our company that have a disability. But identification is something, and I'm enjoying learning from Cassie about how to drive that forward. What's happening more for us right now is that we're a growing company, and so that we're moving literally all the time. And so what reached me last year is that there's quite a bit of stress from our associates on as we move into new offices. The newer ones are in some ways, even though they're ADA compliant, some of the new technology actually moves the bar for people who have a different ability. An example of this I would give you is if you go into Capital One's employee cafe, all the ordering is done on an iPad. Well, if you're visually impaired, that's not going to work very well for you, and nobody's really thought their way through this. So the issue, Karen, is that best intentions in the world and a very innovative company, but in some respects, moving accessibility out as technology comes in. So that's the problem statement. What we did as an employee group is really make this case. And we have an analytical culture. It helped that we had done our analysis on how many employees were affected and where they were located and how likely they were to be more engaged with their roles if we could accommodate them. And took that case to our HR folks, who quickly realized that they were really not the problem, that our building facilities people were a little disconnected from what our employees needed. And from there, we then met the group that is responsible for employee accommodation, still another group that needed to get on board and help us craft solutions for the problems that we could identify.
So, I've spent a good almost 20 years working with ERGs, BRGs, and I love the term, BRGs. And one of the things that I tend to run into, and see others run into over the years, is getting the ERGs to adopt a problem that is identified by an outside group. It wasn't identified by them because what they care about is addressing issues that they have identified for themselves. How did you get the ERGs on board that this was a good problem for them to solve?
It's interesting is that we like complex problems, we like technology and innovation, and so it really wasn't hard. I think a complex problem is sexy, right? And we like those kinds of situations. What surprised me, though, is the reaction was that once we teamed up on solving this particular problem, the other things behind it became easier because the relationships that got formed among the stakeholders, HR, building people, our various technology teams, that became something that we're now riding to solve other situations as they come up. So, it takes a good crisis to create a good team, and I think that's what happened for us.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the same question I asked Cassie, which is, how did you influence other major stakeholders that getting the ERGs involved was a good thing to do?
We took the initiative to say, this is our opinion, this is our view of the situation. It frankly never occurred to us that it wasn't our role to bring this forward. It's really, I think of employee groups as being the yeast in the bread. You're not the whole loaf of bread, but you are the people that care about a particular segment of the associate base. So without getting together, the voice for associates with disabilities would be small. But in a group, we're quite powerful. And I think the same is true for the other resource groups around our company. So we owned the issue. We went directly to the people whose day job it is to solve problems like this, and created a working group among all of those folks in order to drive better accommodations for us.
Yeah, I would imagine the maturity of your group helped, right? They're not at Roundtable, you're just starting out. They perhaps have been around for some time.
I think we are pretty juvenile. My own understanding of these issues is just really emerging in the last couple of years. And really the history of our group had to do more with caregivers than associates themselves. But we realized a couple of years ago that we absolutely had to put the caregivers, no offense to people who are in that situation, I am myself, really to the side and think first about associates working in our company with disabilities, that needed to be a primary focus because for years it had been more about those of us who are caregivers. And so once we pivoted to thinking about associates, we were in a much faster lane.
Great. All right, I'll come back to you later. Now let me turn to Stephanie. Stephanie, tell us what story. You've got a number of stories. So tell us one of those stories.
Which one you want to hear?
Well, let's see. So we do have a few. One of the things that I absolutely adore and love about New York Life is really, companies will say we really care about diversity and inclusion and it's really important. And that is absolutely true at New York Life. I've been at many companies. I've been at Citi, I've been at Capital One, all of which were great companies. But when I came to New York Life, I could feel the difference. I really felt like I was part of something different. And one of the things that I can say was a contributor to that was the tremendous focus on diversity and inclusion and how the ERG groups were so established, how they're run, how they are employee-led. There's executive sponsors for each one, and the executive sponsors aren't just sponsors in name. They are truly active. So for example, for our Enable ERG, our executive sponsor, Joel, our chief risk officer for the company, he comes to our volunteer events. He comes to our guest speaking events, etc. We have one coming up on Monday where he's going to be our closing speaker. So their involvement in and of itself is tremendous. But one of the stories that I think was of interest was around how Enable is really helping to contribute to the business beyond our employee support that we provide, which is clearly a huge piece of what we do. But at New York Life, we do every year what's called a hackathon. I know some companies have those, but for those who don't know what that is, a hackathon is where, at least at New York Life, the way that we run it is anyone in the company is welcome to come to this event, and it's 24 hours basically where you're in a team, usually of 4 or 5 people, to either solve a business issue or pitch a potential new product or a new idea. And there's different tracks that are given each year that the teams can choose what they want to participate in. And in 2017, in October, for National Disability Employment Awareness Month, the theme was Innovation Through Inclusion. And since that's our month and the hackathon was being held in October, we kind of raised our hands and said, hey, can we get one of the tracks to be about accessibility or something relative to our audience, let's say. So we did that. We went to the leader whose team is responsible for owning the hackathons, and we just said, look, we think that a track would be wonderful. What do you think? And he said, absolutely, makes total sense. Talk to Joel, our ventures team, whose team handles that. We went and talked to Joel and his leadership team, and we said, look, we talked with Craig. We know that you're working on the hackathon. Its focus is on innovation. We really think that a good track for the teams to work on would be about accessibility. Absolutely, sounds great. So one of the 3 tracks in 2017 was about the teams could think of any idea, whether it's a software, it's a product, anything that from an accessibility standpoint that our service organization could use to improve the experience of either our policy owners, our employees, or our agents. And they had free range to decide what that could potentially be. So they had 24 hours, these teams, to come up with something, not just an idea, but actually build a prototype. Because the next day they have to present their idea and their prototype to leadership. And that wouldn't have happened had Enable not raised our hands to say, look, here's a great opportunity for us to get some groupthink around this on how we can build experiences and enhance experiences from an accessibility standpoint for at least one of our constituents.
So we're heading. Give us the result.
Well, from a competitive standpoint, I can't tell you everything, but I will say that what our winning team focused on, one of the team members, his father was born deaf. So that was sort of the focus of what they decided to do for their project, for their idea. And it was around how can they build a system that will enhance the experience for people who are hearing impaired. Leadership absolutely loved the idea, welcomed the team, the winning team, to our research and development lab, and started testing and learning and doing research. Are there other softwares, for example, that are already in existence? Is it something that New York Life would have to build itself, or is there something that's already out there that we could be tapping into? So while it didn't come to fruition the exact way that they pitched it, because again, they had 24 hours to come up with the idea, it has helped influence through that time other ideas that we have implemented in the service organization to increase our accessibility for our customers.
Can you give us an example of what that looks like?
We're still working on it, but basically when we have one of our customers call in, our service representatives are better trained in a way to handle them. So it's when they call and they have an issue or difficulty hearing, or they've been targeted, not targeted, that's the right word, they've been identified as one of our policy owners who needs some special assistance, they're gone into another pool, if you will, of service representatives that have been specially trained on how to help them.
Can't you imagine the impact it has had on those who were involved in the ERG?
It feels good, especially because, one of the best ways to have ideas are ask your employees. Oftentimes we'll pay, agencies or third parties to come up and solve ideas for us, but let's ask our own employees, the people who are actually doing the job or actually engaging with our policy owners or with our customers. And our hackathons are a great way to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't like ships that accumulate barnacle, they accumulate wisdom. Tap into that wisdom,
Yes,
right?
yes, and we do the hackathon every year. Every year.
Wow.
Mhm.
I'm gonna come back later, but John, 3 fabulous stories. Make it a 4th.
For us, it's helping the clients, right? We started the, I'm a member of the the employee group, for a long time. It's evolved for me in how you're helping to host events internally, right? To, one event that I've been involved with personally with the firm as part of the network has been the We Care campaign, internally about mental health for employees, but then how to share that with clients. And that was a story I shared earlier, is that, how do we take it now to our clients, and how do we advise them, and how do we assist them? And it started with bringing awareness to partners internally. What does the resource network do? And how are you helping people today? Not just internally, but they were amazed at some of the things that we shared with them, how we actually helped clients of ours today, because we know somebody and they asked us a question about, well, how do you handle assistive technology? And we explained to them the process that we handle internally, how the network helped in maturing that, but also how it helped spun off on the technology side, that there is actually an assistive technology, service owner. And now putting that individual in touch with somebody at a client side who's trying to maybe start something there. And so they helped bring down the learning curve. They made a connection outside of normal services that we would engage a client with, right? And how nice is that of a story where, you're not talking to them about maybe tax or insurance or advisory services, but now it's more of a personal connection where you're assisting a group or a company in sharing the knowledge you've gained. To use your phrase earlier, it's a win-win for everybody, right? It's a win for the firm. It's a win for an individual who may be more on the back office side and may not have an opportunity to engage with a client, about some services that he's a service owner of. but now he can assist somebody not just internally, but now he's assisting another company on that service that he provides.
Yeah, talk about how the relationship has changed, if it has, with some of those clients.
So it's changed a lot. I mean, it started with sharing with partners and awareness of what the group does, helping to bring that knowledge to them, and they were amazed, right, at some of the things we were doing. And now it's, working with the business development team, again, to help educate them, but also make them aware that if a client comes to you regarding maybe they hear something that, hey, we're trying to start an accessibilities network at our company, or the gentleman here in the front, he talked about the autism at work. E&Y is one of the several companies that started that, and how now we share that playbook with other companies as well. So it's not just helping them out on onesie twosies. Now it's kind of like, hey, part of the package that you sell, that you bring to a client, it's also these other intangible value-add services that, are not maybe on the menu that you would normally bring to a client, but these other intangible things and the value that they have, because it's a personal connection, but it's also something that you're sharing, right? You're sharing that information that you've learned, that knowledge that you captured with other companies. And now you've gained the benefit of that. It's not just E&Y coming to the table, it's now partnering with other companies, for example, on that autism at work, and now getting other companies involved too. So now you're really starting to turn the needle, to use that word, even to use that phrase, I apologize, a little bit more. So it's not just the power of, you've taken the power of an individual, of a group, of a small group, and now you've put a bigger force behind it, so now it's helping a client, and you're helping their network possibly. I mean, we've exchanged speakers sometimes at networks where, members of our own company, the Accessibilities Network, and others have spoken at, other companies, on a particular topic.
This is a pause, commercial break, if you will, where I want for you to start thinking about the questions you want to ask of the panel members. So I have one round of questions, and I'm going to start with John. So think about your questions, because I'm going to come to you next. So, John, all of you, and I'm going to start with John. What lessons have you learned? And what might you do differently, if anything at all?
Lessons I've learned: don't underestimate the value of the individuals within the resource groups. I think that was mentioned earlier. We hire consultants, we're all in the same boat, right, to fix a problem. Meanwhile, the answer is probably somebody in our own organization who's actually doing that process or that work. Invite them to the table, bring them to the table, and I think you'd be surprised the insight that they have to offer, regarding things.
One of the things that's really hard, and I'm going to start with maybe John or anyone of you can answer, maybe the answers in the audience. One of the things that's really hard, and I ran into this recently, is that particularly leaders in the organization, senior leaders, don't see ERG members or see ERGs as the value that we're all talking about today. And they don't want them to get involved in true business work. So from your experience, any of you, or again, in the audience, how have you influenced those individuals to open up their minds to tap into those very groups, because they are unique?
Yeah, I mean, for us at E&Y, I mean, the leadership is such a tremendous support, right? And sharing the stories, has only opened up their eyes even more. And now we're not trying to find a seat at the table, right, to those conversations. They're actually reaching out to members in the network group to be invited. And that's when you've kind of tipped the scale, right, in your favor, where they're actually, based on what you've shared with them, that they're inviting you now to come and share your information and share your stories, and
value add.
And bringing that value add and bringing that kind of expertise level to other companies, because now you're actually bringing the people that the experts will say to the table to have that conversation with the people who are looking for the answers.
Yeah. Lessons you've learned and what might you do differently based on the story you shared. We'll come down the line.
Okay. I love what John had to say, and I would just add to that the power of convening. Here's a great illustration right here, is the power of convening. Your resource group is a convener. You can invite people, as you do. You can get the official folks together. You can state what the issues are. So that's the lesson that we've learned, is that we can set the agenda. And that's been very powerful, not just for our resource group, but for my peers as well. I think the other thing that we've learned is that sometimes you have to state the obvious and state it over and over again. We ran a campaign on self-ID, and we went through okay, why would I do this? Is it confidential? And also some really compelling stories about why you might want to identify. So I would say convening and state the obvious, and maybe a little magic will happen along the way.
Lesson learned. I would say one of our lessons learned is to not underestimate the power of our voice and just how much influence we can have when it comes to advocating for our employees, when it comes to advocating for an even better way for us to do business, and not being afraid to ask the question. If you don't ask, it's always a no. So what's the worst that can happen if you ask? One of the most recent examples for us is that for the first time, we're going to be piloting in just our home office for Take Your Kids to Work Day to have enable specific sponsored events so that our employees who have special needs kids can feel a part of that day as well. And that wouldn't have come to pass if we didn't at least just ask, can we? If we can, then great. What can we do together to make it happen and make it a valuable experience for everybody? So the lesson learned is ask. It's always a no if you don't.
Or it's a yes, right? It's the other side of it.
Well, that's when you ask for forgiveness versus permission.
I like to say no means new opinion or new opportunity.
So I will piggyback off of Stephanie when not asking, and I will say the lesson learned for me is direction, not intention, determines your destination. And I say that because I'm not afraid to ask. So it's a big company. L'Oreal is a global company, and I would not believe that if I asked for my disability to be included in the benefits of the company, would they say yes? And because of the Break the Silence campaign, because I self-disclosed, because I had a leader reach out to me, because I had a leader reach out to me and say, ask, and I did. And because I asked, and because of the Breaking the Silence campaign, the entire L'Oreal USA medical benefits have changed. And now hearing aids and hearing opportunities have changed the lives, not only myself, but other employees in the organization. And today I sit here able to hear, being single-sided deafness because of the ERG. So not being and it changed my life. So I can tell you so I have a device, you can't see it. I have a Baha. That Baha I would not have it without the new medical benefit. And why I say it changed my life is my children would say, Mom. And now, so we played around with this new device, and now at home, the minute I put it on, they said, can I try? I said, yes. So they ran to the back of the mudroom, and they said something, and they said, Mom, did you hear me? And I said, I did. They said, what did I say? And I said, you said, I love you, Mom. And they said, yeah, you know, like, and that was, and my 10-year-old was crying because I didn't realize how much that impacted him. So you, as leaders in the organization, can make an impact in people's lives, because my organization made an impact in mine. So, woo.
Now it's your turn. Questions, raise your hands. We've got a microphone that will be coming around. We've got 2 in the back. 2 questions in the back. 3 questions in the back.
Craig Jackson from CIT. I might be asking someone to go many, many years back, and it's okay if that's the case. But think back to the beginning when you got your abilities group off the ground. How did you go about establishing that core group or identifying, you know, individuals to kind of stand up the group and build membership around it?
So for myself, it was just asking people, right? You'd be surprised when you just make a simple ask. You know, you explain the why, you explain what you're trying to achieve, and would you like to be a part of it? You know, we'll maybe figure it out as we go along. For me, the group was established, but I was new to an office I transferred to about 10 years ago, and I didn't know anybody in the office. So it was really just making connections with people, right? And people that I've met and asking them if they want to be a part of it. Hey, would you want to join this, you know, crew club and see where we go? And it kind of opened up a lot of opportunities for those members because, again, they got involved in local events and doing things that they wouldn't do in their normal day jobs. And it opened up doors for them to progress in their careers and maybe feel a passion of theirs too. And it made the group that we started with so cohesive. And we all come from different backgrounds and different departments, but we leverage each other now in so many other ways. It's not just within the group, but it's, you know, they'll reach out saying, I may have an IT problem and I know I'm supposed to follow this process, but could you help? Sure. I may have a recruiting question. I'm looking, you know, somebody's looking for a position for an intern, and I'll leverage somebody in that regard. So, don't.
Great. We've got 2 more questions there. Yep.
My name is Jeff Williams. I'm from Colgate-Palmolive. I'm a budget analyst at Colgate-Palmolive, and I'm part of one of the ERG groups at my company called Colgate Abilities Network. My question is, how do you go about getting people to self-identify when they don't have a physical disability? That seemed to be one of the biggest challenges, because even though the company may be willing to help, if people, I was happy with her saying break the silence. I like that terminology, because if people don't self-identify, and I don't think it's so much people don't want to self-identify, I think part of the problem is feeling welcome, feeling accepted to self-identify.
I'll go, and then I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts. You've got to make it cool to self-identify, you know, and piggybacking on the networking answer to how you find people, then, you know, you really want it to be fun and a great thing to be part of your employee group. And we were just blessed that we had a couple of early folks that stood up to tell their story on mental health that were just incredible people. And that took what you think is an issue that is associated with big stigma. You know, I would have said maybe that's the biggest stigma in our society. Flipped it around, and our mental health events are the best attended events that we have. And it really helped us drive a lot more awareness that you can identify, you can get accommodations, and that many, many, many people who are doing great work at our company have a mental health issue, struggling with depression or PTSD or anxiety. Who knew? But now that, you know, you get a couple of brave souls that are great leaders to talk, then you get the next wave, and maybe there's a wave after that.
Yeah, I would say the same. Where we saw the biggest change from 0.4 people disclosing disability to the 2.5%, that middle ground was the introduction of that campaign. And one of the biggest areas was people like myself and my other peers sharing our personal stories about what disability meant to me and why self-disclosing was so important. And I was happy to share and still share what the company was able to do to bridge that gap for me on my personal disability. When that story was out all over L'Oreal's website, I had employees come to me and say, but I want it to be confidential, but I want to know what's available. And so the part of the Breaking the Silence campaign was also helping employees recognize that it can be confidential, it can be anonymous, or you could scream it like I do off the top of the roof, that there's an opportunity to share. And specific to the industry that I work in, so I work in physical distribution, where we could be standing up a facility any day. And so I share that it's important for people to share with us the opportunity that exists in our workforce with people with disabilities, because we want to build a facility that is inclusive of everyone. And without knowing the accommodations that people need or want, we would be missing. And so we use the personal connections to do that.
I only add, and then I'll take the next question, that underscoring what they both said is the importance of trust. This is a shameless plug for a June event that's coming up where we're going to be talking about trust. But it's incredibly important to build trust within the organization, within people, in order for them to feel comfortable to disclose. And of course, once you have trust there, having someone who is respected and valued and is in a position of power and influence to share their story really opens up the floodgate. We've got a question right here.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having us here and being an inspiration to us all. My name is Joanne Canosa, and I'm the COO of Barclays Reach Disability and Mental Health Awareness Group. I'm here with my colleague Mercedes Oliveros, who works for Diversity and Inclusion. My question is around your company's external partnerships with nonprofits that further push the mission to raise awareness and support for the special needs community. There's so much funding that nonprofits need to continue doing what they do, and Barclays is gearing up to plan programming to help our nonprofits through our match funding. We love to do an interbank, inter-industry fundraising event with you all. My question is, what are some examples of successful fundraising efforts that your companies have done that were able to follow suit and raise money?
I'm not sure that I'm necessarily the right one to talk about our partnerships with different not-for-profits. My colleague might be able to do that a little bit better than me, although he's giving me a look like no. But I can speak to the fundraising that we do at New York Life. Well, one of the things that we do company-wide every year is something that's called the Giving Campaign. And it's either 3 or 4 weeks, irrelevant, let's say 3 weeks. So it's 3 weeks long where there are intense, fun activities that happen throughout those 3 weeks where we encourage all of our employees to donate, whether it be to an organization that we support through our New York Life Foundation. New York Life Foundation, our two main focus areas are education, childhood education, and childhood bereavement. So any employee who gives to an organization that ties back to one of those two, the foundation automatically matches it to a certain amount. But employees are encouraged to give to any organization that is important to them. But on top of that, there are coordinated activities that happen throughout the entire campaign. So departments will host their own fundraising activities, whether it be they'll host a carnival, or they will host a karaoke event, or they'll do trivia. Every year, our CEO, Ted Mathis, hosts his own event in our home office where employees are invited to participate. in teams. So this year it was a playoff of Pictionary. So it was like, so you think you can draw, where to be able to compete against him, each team had to raise a certain amount of money. And whatever money was raised, the foundation matched, right? For particular organizations that we support for the not-for-profits. Last year, it was a playoff of Family Feud. Before that, it was Rock Trivia. So the point is that it's supported literally at the top, from our CEO all the way down. And it's, again, like, I've never seen anything like it before. And it is, when I say intense, it like takes over the culture. There's flyers all over the building. It's just, and you'll see also activities through the ERGs happening specifically. So the departments are doing their own activities, but the ERGs are doing their own as well.
So, we've got time for one more. Right here.
Hey, how you doing? Charles Baranici from BDP. Sorry I walked in late to steal the question. Apologize. There's actually, I'm going to say 2 questions, actually. Well, I have to invite.
Could I just
first
keep
is
it to
around.
one? Because I just promised
it's one
him
part
that he'll get one.
And so we're starting ERG at 8 now around disabilities. The question I have, and I think probably everyone has a vision around changing culture, and it's to some degree, and all this stuff kind of feeds into it. How will do you have any insights on how to actually measure that? Right, I'm a big proponent of what gets measured, what actually gets done. So how do we go about measuring the impact? Like, I know we want to do the self-identification, we want to do all those things, and those are kind of true. But what are we doing around how do we actually measure the impact? This kind of
Yeah, we like to measure things too. Do you all do an associate survey? So you can cut the data in your social associate survey by your demographic. So we ask to track the engagement of associates that identify as having a disability quarter to quarter. We do satisfaction surveys quarterly. So the theory, the strongest through line that we come up with is that if we can track, relative to their peers, if our ERG members are more engaged or they're trending upward, that's a good thing. We also look at retention. People vote with their feet too, right? So we track what I just said by demographic.
You mentioned that you came in late, so I don't know if you caught Shane's presentation. But his entire presentation was about measurement. So we're happy to give you the slides if you weren't able to see it, but it's all about the impact they're having on the business. And clearly, the stories they shared, we get into the depth of the impact that they're having on the business. But our panel members are going to be around for the time that we're here, so you'll still have a chance to connect with them. We've got one final question as well.
I'll make it quick. I'm Ariantos with Charter Communications. The question is for you, John. I was wondering if you could just tell us more about the work that you do with autism, and what would a company get if we were to reach out to you? What is it that you would share with us?
Sure. I mean, the individual I know, Lori, who couldn't be here tonight, I'm actually filling in for her, so just so you know. So she has spoken with companies, to help guide them, to help advise them. She's a tremendous resource. She has been at the forefront since I've been at the company for the past 13 years. I've known her for the full 13 years that I've been there. And I can't say enough about her. Lovely lady. She can help map out a strategy for you. What needs to be defined, maybe how you measure it, to the gentleman's point earlier. What are the benefits of it? Not just to help the employees, right? But also then, how does it tie into what you're looking to do as a business? So she sees it from a bigger lens, maybe is the right word. I'm not sure what the right word is, but she would be a tremendous resource and somebody who I would suggest, putting in contact with you, right? You don't have to be necessarily a client of ours, right? She's done it before for non-clients to help them, because I think that's what we're all in the job of doing, is connecting the dots, right? It's not that, that's what we do. We try to connect the dots, right? So, and that's would be somebody that I would leverage, and she would be a tremendous resource, in my opinion. She's helped, that I mentioned earlier with the autism work with the playbook. It's being leveraged by other companies, and, it wasn't put together by just our company, it was put together by a group of companies partnering together to share information, and that's how it's going to get better, right? By more people leveraging it and sharing that information to make it a version 2, version 3, and maturing that product, right? And again, it's that partnership which is important as well, too.
So clearly your stories have landed well, because we've got so many questions coming from the audience, and on behalf of the entire audience, we appreciate hearing the many ways the accumulated wisdom within your ERGs is affecting the individual, but also the entire organization. And I can only hope that those here who are here today, through your actions, they're inspired to learn more, they're inspired to do more, they're inspired to become more, because that's what leadership is. So ladies and gentlemen, give our panel members a great big round of applause.